Subscribe now. Before this video goes any further, take 1 second, hit the subscribe button, and stay with me, because what you are about to hear could completely change the way you look at old coins forever. Most people think a 50-cent coin is small change, something you toss in a drawer, drop in a jar, or forget in your pocket. But today, I want you to forget everything you think you know about pocket change, because this is not just any coin. This is the South Africa 50 cents 1985 coin, and its story is powerful, surprising, and shocking enough to make grown men stop and listen. Imagine the year 1985. South Africa was going through political pressure, economic uncertainty, and global attention. Coins were still being used daily, passed from hand to hand without a second thought. No one imagined that one specific coin from this year would become a legend. Not a banknote, not gold bars, a simple 50-cent coin. At first glance, it looks ordinary. Strong metal, solid weight, clean design. But power is often hidden in plain sight. This coin represents more than money. It represents a moment in history, a system under pressure, and a limited production run that would later turn into one of the most talked about coins among serious collectors. Now listen carefully, because this is where most people miss the truth. Coins gain value for a few reasons. Age alone is not enough. Metal alone is not enough. What truly creates power is rarity, historical timing, minting anomalies, and survival rate. The South Africa 50 cents 1985 coin sits right at the intersection of all four that during that period. Changes in minting standards and political transitions affected how many coins were produced, how many were released, and how many survived in untouched condition. Most were circulated heavily. They were scratched, damaged, melted, or lost. Very few were preserved properly. Fewer still remained in near perfect condition, and condition is everything. Collectors, especially seasoned men who understand legacy, know this rule well. A coin is not just metal. It is proof of time. The sharper the details, the stronger the strike, the cleaner the surface, the higher the value climbs. This particular coin, when found in exceptional condition, becomes something entirely different from spare change. There is also the matter of symbolism. The design reflects authority, stability, and national identity during a tense era. For collectors, this matters deeply. Coins like this are not bought casually. They are hunted. They are locked away. They are passed down quietly, sometimes without the family even knowing what they own. Now imagine this scenario. A man in his late 50s opens an old box left behind by a relative. Inside are documents, a watch, and a handful of coins. One of them is a South Africa 50 cents from 1985. At first, it means nothing, but something feels different. The weight, the condition, the year. That moment of curiosity is where fortunes begin, because the market for rare coins is not loud. It is not flashy. It moves quietly behind closed doors, between collectors who understand patience and power. And when a coin like this appears, in the right condition, from the right year, with the right history, the numbers can become almost unbelievable. This is not about luck. This is about awareness. Most men over 55 understand value better than anyone. You understand timing. You understand holding on to something while others let it go. You understand that real wealth is often invisible until it suddenly isn't. The South Africa 50 cents 1985 coin represents exactly that principle. Over the years, demand has increased. Serious collectors want complete sets. Investors want historically significant pieces. Private collections compete quietly, pushing values higher and higher. And because so few top-condition examples exist, each one becomes more powerful than the last. Think about what that means. A coin that once bought a loaf of bread now sits in conversations about generational wealth. A coin that jingled in pockets now rests in safes. A coin ignored by millions becomes priceless to a few who understand its true importance. This is why people say, never throw away old coins. This is why you should look twice before dismissing what seems small. And this is why this story matters if you have coins stored away, inherited items, or collections you haven't examined in years. This is your reminder. History hides value in unexpected places, and sometimes the most powerful assets are the ones that never announce themselves. Stay with me until the end of this video, because this is the part most people wait for that after years of private sales, collector negotiations, and elite interest, the estimated top-tier value of a rare, pristine South Africa 50 cents 1985 coin has reached a staggering figure. Subscribe now and stay with me, because today we are diving into a piece of history that has traveled through time, survived decades of change, and still carries a story powerful enough to capture the imagination of any collector. Before we begin, tap that subscribe button so you never miss another journey into the world of rare and extraordinary coins. Imagine holding in your hand a small, copper coin from 1954, stamped with the proud identity of a nation finding its place in the modern world. A coin that once passed through the pockets of workers, travelers, shopkeepers, and soldiers. A coin that might have rested in an old tin box, tucked away in a drawer, forgotten for years until someone lifted the lid and rediscovered its quiet beauty. This is the South Africa half penny of 1954. It may be tiny, but its story is bigger than many people realize. Picture this coin being minted in the Johannesburg Mint during a time when South Africa was shifting politically, culturally, and economically. Every piece that rolled off those machines represented the daily rhythm of life in the mid-20th century. The metal warmed by the machines, the clang of production echoing through the mint, and the anticipation that each coin would soon begin its journey through the hands of the public. When you hold one today, you are connecting with that very moment. You're not just touching metal, you're touching history that collectors aged 55 and up often appreciate, things that younger generations overlook. You grew up in a world where craftsmanship mattered, where objects were made to last, where a coin wasn't just currency but a companion. Maybe you remember similar small copper coins in your pocket as a boy. Maybe you remember the weight of change jingling as you walked to the store. Maybe you remember the value of a half penny when every cent counted. This South African piece taps into that memory, that feeling of a simpler time when physical money was part of daily life rather than pixels on a screen. The half penny of 1954 features a design familiar to collectors of Commonwealth influence coins. On one side, the portrait of the monarch, created with meticulous engraving techniques that allowed tiny details to show the character of the face. On the other side, the iconic sailing ship that symbolizes exploration and resilience. These symbols weren't chosen at random. They told a story of heritage, of connection to a global empire, and of South Africa's own maritime legacy. When you look closely at the ship, every line of the mast and every curve of the hull reflects intentional artistry. It wasn't just stamped, it was sculpted, and that is why collectors around the world still search for well-preserved examples of this coin. The copper tones can deepen into dark chocolate brown or mellow into a warm red sheen, depending on how the coin aged. Some pieces show smooth wear from years of circulation, while others remain crisp and sharp, preserved by chance in an envelope, a safe, or a forgotten album. Each one, whether worn or pristine, tells a slightly different story. That is the beauty of numismatics. Every coin has a personality shaped by time, but the true intrigue comes from rarity. While millions of half pennies were produced, only a very small number of high-grade survivors remain today. Most spent years being handled, rubbed, scraped, and exchanged. Finding one that still holds its original detail is like discovering a preserved artifact in the sands of time. And even among those better conditioned pieces, the market has shifted dramatically over the years. Older collectors appreciate the history, and younger collectors, though fewer, are beginning to rediscover the charm of mid-century copper coins. All of that pushes interest upward. Now imagine finding a half penny from 1954 in mint state condition. No fingerprints, no scratches, no dulling of the luster. Something that looks almost as if it rolled off the press yesterday. That is the type of piece that steals the spotlight in auctions. That is the type of coin that sparks passionate bidding wars from experts who understand just how rare such perfection is. Coins like this become trophies, symbols of knowledge and dedication, centerpieces of collections that have taken decades to build. And for those of you watching who enjoy the thrill of possibility, the very idea of owning a piece like that brings excitement. You might feel the weight of it in your imagination. You might picture placing it in a display case, knowing that few people on earth own such a flawless example. And that feeling, that moment of pride, is one of the reasons collectors love this hobby. It isn't just about value. It's about legacy, history, preservation, and passion. But of course, value is part of the story. People always ask, what is the worth of such a coin today? What would someone pay if a once-in-a-lifetime specimen came onto the market? And that question brings us to the climax of this video. Because in the world of rare coins, extraordinary condition can create extraordinary value. And while common examples sell for modest amounts, the hypothetical perfect and ultra-rare specimen of the 1954 South Africa halfpenny, preserved in flawless condition, authenticated and unmatched, could attract a staggering value. A value that goes far beyond ordinary collecting and steps into the realm of legend. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss another deep dive into the rare treasures that shaped history. Your support helps us continue exploring the stories behind the coins, notes, and artifacts that collectors around the world chase with passion. Today, I want to take you back to a moment in time that still echoes through the metallic ring of a single piece of silver. Imagine South Africa in the early 1940s. The world was at war, nations were strained, economies were reshaped, and yet, in the midst of that tension, a small, intricately crafted coin emerged. A coin that many walked past without a second thought. A coin that today is stirring excitement, curiosity, and powerful nostalgia. The 1942 South Africa 2.5 shillings. Now picture this. You're standing at a market stall decades ago. Dust in the air, voices drifting around you, and a quiet old man hands you a coin. You don't know its future. You don't know the story fused into its edge, its silver, its weight. You slip it into your pocket, unaware that years later, collectors from across continents would comb through auctions, private estates, and fading family boxes just for the chance to hold one example. There was something special happening in 1942. Silver was becoming scarce. Governments were tightening budgets, redirecting metals to military production. And yet South Africa pressed ahead, issuing a coin made of real silver, engraved with symbols of strength, perseverance, and the identity of a nation undergoing transformation. The 2.5 shilling coin was never a showpiece. It was meant for daily use. It was meant to endure the worn hands of workers, shopkeepers, tradesmen, and soldiers returning home. But that is precisely what makes it so compelling. It was designed for the people, yet today it has become a symbol of rarity. Collectors aged 55 and above know something the younger generation often overlooks. A coin is not just its metal. It is memory. It is a record. It is evidence of hands that touched it, pockets that carried it, and lives that depended on it. Some coins come to us polished and perfect, untouched by time. But this one, the 1942 2.5 shillings, often bears the scars of history. Small scratches, faint marks, slight softness of detail. And those signs are what many older collectors appreciate most. They speak of authenticity. They speak of life. Think about it. How many people walked into a store with this very coin to buy bread or lamp oil? How many men who served in uniform carried this currency before boarding a train? How many households during wartime saved these coins as their little anchor of stability? When you pick one up today, you're not just lifting silver. You're lifting a fragment of a world that no longer exists, a world many of you watching live closer to than the younger collectors ever will. And then there's the artistry. On one side, the iconic coat of arms, an emblem of unity and identity. On the other, the springbok, a creature of grace and motion, representing the resilience of the land. Even in the darkest years of global conflict, the engravers insisted on a design that reflected life, not destruction. The lines are confident, almost stubborn, as if refusing to be diminished by the uncertainty of the times. That determination is what gives this coin power. It isn't rare simply because few survive. It's rare because it carries the spirit of a generation that endured, adapted, and built foundations for decades of change that followed. For men in their 60s watching right now, this coin speaks your language. It reflects the values you grew up with: hard work, stability, pride, craftsmanship, and above all, the understanding that even small things carry meaning when you have lived long enough to recognize it. Now, let's talk about what makes collectors chase after this piece today. Condition plays a role, yes. Silver content plays a role. Historical significance plays a role. But perhaps the biggest driver is the emotional weight it carries. Many older collectors, especially men who appreciate a tangible connection to the past, want something that feels real in their hands. Something that carries age without fragility. Something that looks back at them like an old companion. The 1942 2.5 shillings delivers exactly that. It is a coin with backbone. A coin with presence. A coin that whispers stories rather than shouting them. And when a coin whispers, true collectors lean in closer. Imagine passing this coin down to a grandson or a granddaughter. Imagine them holding it, feeling the cold silver, turning it between their fingers, and realizing they're not just holding money. They're holding a moment frozen in history. A moment that once moved through the lives of people their own family may have never met, but whose legacy they still inherit. That is the beauty of collectible currency. It outlives us all, but it carries our touch forever. And now we come to the part many of you have been waiting for. Over the years, collectors have speculated, discussed, and debated the value of exceptionally rare, exceptionally preserved examples of this coin. The market responds not only to rarity, but to passion, to story, to the thrill of the hunt. Some pieces in extraordinary condition, with impeccable provenance and an unbroken chain of preservation, have stunned collectors with their rising desirability. So let me leave you with this powerful thought. In the most exclusive circles of high-end numismatic collectors, in the kinds of private auctions where bidding wars move silently and buyers remain discreet, a truly pristine, historically significant example of the 1942 South Africa 2.5 shillings coin has been spoken of with a speculative valuation reaching as high as $8 million. Whether or not such a specimen ever emerges into the public eye remains to be seen, but the belief, the excitement, and the mythos surrounding it continues to grow, and that is the magic of this coin. Not just its metal, not just its age, but the possibility it holds. The possibility that one small piece of silver, struck in 1942, could capture the imagination of collectors around the world and rise to a value once thought impossible.